Gnomes are perhaps the least known D&D core race. Right from start, that's a challenge on making it an interesting race to play with. After all, we're more used to elves, dwarves, orcs, dragons, and devils in all fantasy works, and that makes them an almost intuitive choice. Halflings don't appear in many fantasy works, but they're the central characters are nothing else but the Lord of the Rings. Gnomes, unfortunately, are mostly relegated to house gardens, children cartoons, and fairy tales. That lack of common knowledge would be enough to make it hard for anyone to distinguish a forest gnome from a rock gnome. But their race traits make that an even harder task. I've had entire campaigns with gnome characters that have not once used Speak with Small Beasts or Artificer's Lore. They're way too specific traits. With all that in mind, I would guess One D&D should have at least two goals in mind on reviewing the gnome race design. First, make them more appealing, and second, better differentiate their two lineages. So it was a disappointment to me that gnomes saw little change in One D&D. Their base speed was increased to 30 feet, as it was done with dwarves and halflings. Rock gnomes also got an additional cantrip, but again, that's not enough. Let's rely on a comparison with elves. Both of them have dark vision. Check. Gnomish cunning is pretty cool, as it grants advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saves. One could argue that that is comparable in power to the whole elf package of King Senses, Fey Ancestry, and Trance. Okay, also check. The gnomish lineages, however, are inferior when compared to the elven lineages. Forest gnomes, for instance, have simply one cantrip and one first level spell, Speak with Animals. One could argue that gnomes get all their gnomish lineage benefits on first level and elves don't, but for me, that's another problem. Elven lineages, Fiendish legacies, and celestial legacies are all neatly streamlined. Having a weird-looking gnomish lineage bothers me. It makes the race mechanics less intuitive and therefore more complicated. And I don't think it would be hard to streamline gnomish lineages with other lineages and legacies, and at the same time give the power buff that gnomes still need to be well balanced with the remaining races, in my opinion. So, my forest gnome lineage would have the minor illusion cantrip at first level, then Speak with Animals, not on first but on third level, and finally Animal Messenger, a second level spell, once the character reached fifth level. For rock gnomes, I would first transform what is so far known as the Tinker race trait into a ritual cantrip. Create Minor Construct, for instance. There, you no longer have a 5-paragraph race trait. You're welcome. Then, my rock gnome lineage could have the Create Minor Construct cantrip at first level, then Alarm, a first level spell at third level, and finally Arcane Lock, a second level spell at fifth level. There you go. Two gnomish lineages neatly streamlined with their elves, tieflings, and earthlings counterparts, and with a needed buff to reach a power level similar to elves and the most powerful races. Maybe even more importantly, game mechanics that provide additional flavor, make them more appealing to play with, and better differentiate forest gnomes and rock gnomes from each other.